Benny Cullen, welcome to the Process Podcast.
Excited for you.
It's very good to have you here. Benny, I'm kind of returning the favor in a way, I feel, because you had me on your radio show, your talk show.
Yeah, it was
Once.
awesome.
It was good. I really enjoyed it. That was actually I think that's the first radio show I've ever been on.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. I was glad to have you on and lean on you as a CrossFit expert. I think it was around the times of the time of the CrossFit Games, so the timing was good. And yeah, I loved having you on.
Benny, maybe this is a good chance for you to start by introducing yourself, who you are and what do you do?
My goodness. Okay, I'm gonna go with what I'm doing next full time. I am Ben Cullen. My stage name as a DJ is now Benny C, which we can get into shortly. And I am a DJ and producer. However, I do have multiple things I do. I have two businesses. One is a rugby coaching business. It is a franchise called Rugby Tots. We have Rugby Tots Hong Kong, and I have an events company. We throw large parties, private parties, fundraisers. Our company is called the Got Group, and our flagship event is called Got Balls, and it is fairly well known in Hong Kong. I'm via kind of talking, and I have a radio show and whatnot that led to MCing, and then I'm now kind of one of the global leads for High Rocks as an MC. So there's lots going on. However, my focus for the next 5 to 10 years is music and DJing.
So when you say your focus for the next 5 to 10 years is music and DJing, what does that mean? What all those other things that you're doing, what's going to happen to them?
They're slowly. I've already kind of doing a lot less of it in general, as far as like the Got Group goes. My business partner and best friend George kind of is driving that, and I'm involved in the event week and the event itself, but even to the point where we've started hiring DJs, so I'm not like tied to it. We still have lots of scope to grow that, but I'm not driving it. George is. And as far as the Rugby Tots goes, I've got an amazing team now. We had a really good chat once, and I think I took a lot from that chat, but it took a while for me to implement it, which we can talk about in a while. I now have an amazing team, and as far as like what I actually do, if I got run over by a bus, the company would still operate. Where at one point, it definitely wouldn't have. It would have been like, what do we do? So I do an awful lot less in Rugby Tots, which is really cool. And at some point, in the next 6 months, I'm going to have to step back from radio, because the more time I'm spending doing other things, the less I'm doing, quite frankly, making music and DJing, which is really what I want to do.
So Benny, when I first met you, I think you had joined Coastal. I think this is it pre-pandemic?
Yeah.
It's about 2019. I think
Yeah,
it's the
it was,
early
it
days
was.
of us moving into this gym, and kind of I think you were transitioning out of rugby.
Exactly
Your
that.
rugby days were kind of done. Obviously, I'd been out of rugby for a long time, but you kind of always just catch wind of like the players or the guys finishing up their careers, and then obviously you have a laugh about being a washed up rugby player and all that. So we did all that, and I think you were just starting to get into DJing. And I mean, like, I think it was a very recreational thing at that point in time. You
Absolutely.
DJ'd for our 10-year anniversary. I remember you DJ'd at the end of one of the Rugby World Cup matches. You were kind of
That's
like,
it.
we were some of the stragglers left behind. DJ Benny was up on stage. And I think since then, obviously you've become a bit more prevalent on social media, which has allowed the world to kind of have a little look-see into what your life looks like, behind the scenes as well as in front of it. And I feel like a lot has happened. A lot has happened in actually a really short amount of time. And then I think even just you introducing yourself there and just sharing how many things that you're doing. And when you say doing, like, you have a lot of invested interest in a lot of these things. You're a founder of 2 companies. You're DJing, I feel like, almost every single day right now. Rugby Tots it's not like it's a little class that runs in a weekend. It's a pretty established organization that's, running classes almost all day, every day. So what happened, when I first met you, and what happened between then and now? Like, I feel like a lot has happened.
Yeah, it's nice to even think back to those memories. So I've moved around playing rugby. I moved from Wales to America, then back to Wales, then to Australia, then to Hong Kong playing rugby. And rugby was my identity for so long. And I thought it really was my identity. I thought that's who I wanted to be. And I've heard you speak a lot about this as well. And then I finished rugby kind of through injury more than choice. And then I started, spending more time growing these 2 very small businesses at the time. And it was really enjoyable. And I was like, I actually enjoy this way more than actually playing rugby and all these things that I thought I wanted to do. And I thought I wanted to be a professional rugby player. And the reality is I didn't. Society wanted me to be one. Or I thought I wanted to fit in society. So the guys, if you're Welsh, like I played football and then like all the cool guys played rugby. I was like, cool, football's out the window. I'm playing rugby. The rugby guys get the girls and whatever. And then you're like, oh, well, the cooler rugby guys are the ones who are good at rugby. So let me work hard at getting better rugby. And then you're like, oh, I got to move around a little bit. And then you finish and go, I'm not sure that actually was me after a lot of self-reflection. So I really enjoyed going on this journey of starting a business, starting the events company. There was a long way of me saying I felt like I had so much to give, and I feel like I still do have so much to give, but I felt trapped kind of inside rugby and also within at the company I was working for before that. And it gets to the point where you like finally take a plunge at something. And through my business partner, Brian, if it wasn't for him kind of going, yeah, let's do it, I don't think I ever would have done it. Then George and Fern, my business partners to the events company, I had never run an event before. I had no idea. And George and but we went to an event in Cardiff on a summer holiday, and I was like, "This is fun. We should do this in Hong Kong." But it's only because of kind of them as well, going like, all of us going Richard Branson style, screw it, let's do it. That I have the courage to do it. And then you get in there and you start getting a feel for these things. I had all these things that led to me wanting to work in music. I told this story a few days ago. When I'm from in Wales, like in the valleys, like boys need to stay out of trouble. So they have a boys club. So you go down the boys club and you play football because they're trying to keep you in the boys club because then you're not setting off fires or drinking or whatever it was. There was this music course that these people came in. They were like 4 lads. They brought in all this equipment. I was like 10 or 11 synthesizers. And this is a long time ago, but they had all this fancy kit. We leave it. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Swear away.
Okay. Not that it was going to be that, but I just needed to check. So like we spend 2 hours in this class. I'm absolutely enthralled with all this equipment. And then we leave the room and all the boys like, that was shit. I'm not doing that again. And I'm like, yeah, let's go play football. Because it wasn't cool to be accepted in music. Then we come back to the events company. We needed a DJ. And thought about doing it before. But you've got to buy the kit and you've kind of got to have an element of like,
So we're talking like a 20-year gap here.
literally. But there was
Yeah.
lots of other things. But that's just one anecdote of the music stuff. Even in school, like all the cool kids didn't have instruments. If you carried an instrument, like you were a weirdo where I'm from. When reality was, I was actually keen to like play with a keyboard. We needed a DJ, and I was like, cool, this is actually my chance to do what I've thought about so many times. Bought an online course, bought some kit, and then you get into it. And I was like terrible for so long. But like anything, the more time you spend on it, the better you get. You upskill, you ask, you learn, and whatever. And I just really found a love for it. And then you go on a discovery of music. And, I play house music and love house music, but that's like a ridiculously big genre that has 40 years of history and still like carving out, well, you'll never not carve out your sound. And I really, really enjoyed it. And a year ago, after kind of taking a step back from rugby tots, I wasn't waking up super early on the weekends. And I was like, cool, now's a chance for me to go play in nightclubs, consistency, and go try and get a residency. It was rugby tots that was stopping me from doing that. Late night, early morning is hard enough as it is. And I finally got one, and it took a while, but I then put so much effort into curating my night, inviting people along. Everybody who comes, like, say thank you to everybody. And I've kind of built, I don't want to call them fans, but I've built this small community now. Like, people will come and see me play. And I don't even think it's necessarily, I think they enjoy my music. Obviously, that's a big part of it.
It's
But I
you.
think it's more of just the feeling of what we're all doing together. Not many DJs get on the mic, and I'm not going to get on there and spend 20 minutes talking. But I think people, when they go to events, they want to be acknowledged as well. And because of my MCing and radio stuff, I've got no problem going on the mic for like 10 seconds just to welcome people, thank them for being here. I'm like, this is what's going to happen tonight. Like, go get your drinks or whatever. Like, we're going to get stuck in. And then I'll play for like 4 or 5 hours, but I won't do that until the last 2 hours or whatever. Then it's like a straight 2 hours, and I'll thank people at the end. Then people will come and say whatever. People will send messages on Instagram or whatever it is. And I just like really enjoying this community and culture that has kind of just happened and blossomed. This is a really long answer. But then in January, I started making music. So it's like, cool, do I actually want to spend time on a laptop? I'm kind of late in this game, the reality of things. But do I want to do that? Do I enjoy doing it? And it is. It's like, cool, like, what is this? There's all these funny memes that I've ever seen about music producers, like listening to sounds, like clicking buttons and listening to sounds. I'm like, I actually love doing that.
Mm.
But the meme is, this is the reality of it, as if like this is boring. But the reality is I actually really enjoy listening and putting these sounds together. So we're in July now, and as of April, I decided that I'm going to spend 1 year like really trying this music stuff. Spending much more time creating content, doing DJ sets. I've gone through a rebranding, about to finish a website, and like really going all in on it. I'm only 3 months in, and I'm like, this is me now. This is what I'm doing. I'm only a third of the way through this year, and I already know. Sorry, quarter of the way through this year, and I already know this is me now.
And I want to come back to why this is you now, but also like what are your aspirations? Like what are you wanting to achieve with this? But before we get there, I'm going to rewind you back a little bit again. Okay, so you start this events company, which is, you guys I remember your first got balls and thinking it was a really cool concept. And then I remember it was in hard times as well. I think it was pandemic times, wasn't it? So there was like social distancing, and you guys still managed to run an unbelievable event, and it's just grown and grown and grown. It's got bigger and bigger and bigger. So it's very cool to see that. But you first stumbling back into DJing, really enjoying it. Why everything else? Like why didn't you just from the get go? You've got Rugby Tots, you've already got a business, it's occupying a lot of your time and energy, has potential to be, I'm assuming, a very profitable investment for you. Then you got DJ on the side. I think I would already look at that and be like, that's quite a lot. But then you've got these 5 other things in between all of that. Why?
I don't think there is a why necessarily. I think it was a case of just happening. So I worked for this other sports company, and I felt like I was building their business and also not getting respected as I should have. And I'm throwing no shade to my manager at all. He's a legend. I've got a lot of time for him. I would say his boss, who wasn't even based in Hong Kong, I don't need to go into it. I felt like I was being disrespected for how much I was doing for the company. And I was like, I'm literally building his business. And I'm like, I don't even think it's that good. There's another point here. I lived in Australia and worked part-time for Rugby Tots there.
Mm.
So I'd experienced the program. And then I come to Hong Kong and realize there's a kids market here and go, cool. Then with Brian, my business partner, was like, screw it, let's start Rugby Tots. But that's all I wanted to do at the time. And I was super happy then running the business. Then we went to that event in Cardiff and was like, well, that's cool. Let's do that. But that's not like full time. So we can maybe throw a party. And then it was like, oh, well, we need a DJ. And all these things happened. The interesting part of I guess, my story is during COVID, which was kind of around the time I kind of joined the gym, or less than a year later anyway. And again, everything seems really normal now. You may have even seen it at the time. We decided to make this kids' TV program on Facebook Live. And again, now it seems normal, but like, what do you mean this rugby company are doing a kids' TV show? We'd dress up, we'd use toilet rolls and teddy bears and whatever, and we taught the kids these games we made up through the screen, and we'd have hundreds of kids on Facebook Live. And our company was small at the time. Hundreds of kids was like most of the company. Through that, Alison, who's my radio boss, she'd been working in media all her life. That's all she's ever done. Her kids were doing it, and she saw me doing Facebook Live for 3 times a week. Then she took me for breakfast one day. It was actually my birthday. I had no idea why. I didn't tell her it was on my birthday either. I was like, sure, why not? And she was like, I want to offer you a job on the radio as being my sports presenter because of the Facebook Live. Then that led to TV. Then that led to MCing, and then that led to High Rocks. So like there was no why. It just kind of happened. And you just get better at managing time. I will also say, like, there's an awful lot of, I'm not going to call it stress. It's like, even today, I've got like 20 things I have to do today. I've not even done half of them yet. I've got a meeting and other stuff to do later. But I kind of like that as well. And um, to go a little bit deeper on like the soul searching point, you sent me a little few questions, and one of them said, please forgive me for taking your question before you ask it, but like, when is enough enough? I don't know what it is that is enough, to be honest. I'm really passionate about my story as a book rather than, I actually really, really don't care about money that much. If I did, I definitely wouldn't do half the things I do. We can talk about it a second. I'm currently in the middle of this Hong Kong DJ tour I'm doing. At the end of it, I'm going to calculate how much money it's cost, not to in any shape or form show off how much money I've spent. Is to show it's like, this is what I invested into this July project for my music career. So I make the money to try and spend the money on my future and my story. That was a long ass answer.
I love it. But I feel like you're now, it sounds like you're at a point now where you're consolidating.
I am. I'm now there.
And is that point of consolidation because you've realized, is it because really that you just realized music is just the thing you really want to do? Or is it also the fact that you feel like you've just got too much, you can't do that thing?
I think it's a combination of
Mm.
both, as well as much as I love Rugby Tots, and the thing I love about Rugby Tots though is like, you know, it sounds so cliche, but it's the reality. It's like working with kids is magical. Like you do not know what's going to come out of their mouth. A kid very rarely has a bad day. You're their highlight of the week. As an adult, you might have a million things that have happened this week that make you feel sad. You turn up a class and like a kid will run in and like tell you they love you or like hug your leg or like they come in with a smile. You forget everything. Working with kids is amazing. Like Rugby Tots is also not mine. It's a franchise. I didn't build that brand. As much as we love it, there are real limitations because it's a franchise. You can't do what you want. That's why it's a franchise. They have their guidelines, which I think at times are really limiting for what the possibilities are. So that's like an element of it as well. However, the more I've gone down this music route and going, cool, I can do that. There's a few DJs and personalities I've met along the way, and you kind of like look at their roadmap and going, well, I'm actually already on that road. They did this, this, and this. There's no reason why I can't do that. Maybe better. And it's not that it's about speed, but possibly faster because I'm kind of late in this game. I'm glad I'm late in this game because I was you know, I don't want to say a wreckhead, but it's not fair. But like, you know, if I'd got into it when I was younger, I'm scared that I would have partied myself out of it. Or if I've come through, you know, health and fitness is a big part of my life. And I'm now happy with who I am and where I am. And maybe it would have been bad if I got into it younger. And well, nothing I can change about it either. So it's a case of consolidating. And now I've decided it's like, cool, then you need to go all in because, you know, like a man who's everywhere is nowhere, if you like, you know. Can't remember whose famous saying that is, but it's both consolidate, and that's what I want to do for the next 5, 10 years because I think I can.
Okay, let's go back to this. Like you just said, you love writing your story, and the money's not a driver. But then what is driving you?
What about, I can't remember what one of your questions was. Oh yeah, I'm not going to say it, but it was in one of your questions, and I thought about it, and I'm just going to bring it up. You can ask it again later. I'm not going to answer it. What is your perfect day? We can go back to it, but I don't have a perfect day. For me, what I love is like new experience and like new. There's like an awful lot of fear in what I do as well. It's like anybody who's like, you know, where if you're an athlete or a competitor, lots of people have like, you know, a job and maybe it's money driven and whatever. But then there's times where you have to like, I need to perform right now, or I need to do something which has a lot of pressure on me. Maybe it's all pressure in your head, and like overcoming that is like a massive high for me. So it's like search, and it's not a search for money. It's a search for like the next.
Thrill and chase and
Yeah, and it is.
unknown and
Yeah, but it's also like a case of like, you know, working to perform and then executing and finding a new level of whatever it is. Right now, I'm going through the Olympics is starting this week, right? And we're going through. I'm doing a 17-day Olympic series for RTHK. That's like another level again of like talking about, we're not talking about the sport, we're talking about the stories around the Olympics and stuff. I've had to go out and find all these different guests and have different conversations to what I'm used to. That's like a new buzz working on this new project. And it's like, it's not tech move on, but it's like, cool, I did Olympics coverage. That's pretty awesome. For a national radio station. That's like cool. So that's what it is. It's like driving the stories with regards to performance and new highs and experiences in that way.
and are there still days that you look at your like your schedule and what you're doing, and you think, what am I doing? Like this is just too much. I want the opposite.
Again, the timing is good. Today I have like actually a crazy day. And last week I had, I would say, a really comfortable week. And at the same time, I was like a little, not, and it's not a case of like wanting to do more and more and more. I had less to do. I had a lot of free time, if you want to call it. And I kind of just didn't enjoy myself as much.
Mm.
The reality was I probably should have worked from X till X and then planned something for that evening when normally it is. I enjoy everything I do, by the way. None of it ever feels like, of course, you have tough days and there's hard things to do, but I enjoy all of it. It's not anything I hate at all. So it's fun to do it. DJing is fun. Podcasting, radio, all these things are actually really fun. Working with kids, doing events, it's all class. So then when I had a bit of time last week, I actually really didn't do much with it. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, I didn't feel like me because I didn't actually go and actively rest or actively go and do anything leisurely.
Mm.
I kind of didn't do a lot. And then I'm like, today was weird.
Did it feel like wasted time? Did it feel like
A little bit, to be honest. As I say, like it's like a discipline thing. It's like cool, work from 9 till 4, 9 till 3. It's the summer. Rugby Tots is more relaxed because kids are away and whatnot. We have summer camps, but I have more time right now. But I didn't really. Yeah,
mm,
I should have done more with. I should have gone to the beach or whatever. But again, this is what life is about. I don't really have that time too often. So when I do moving forward, it'll be like, cool, work till this time, leave the office, leave your decks or whatever. To answer your question, no, not often, to be honest.
I wanted to quickly interrupt this episode with a quick shout out to our sponsors, Today Well Spent. I've been using this journal for 2 years and it has made a massive impact on my physical, but mostly my mental well being. It is a guided journal backed by neuro and behavioral science, which I actually didn't know at the time. It has questions for you to answer at the start of the day, at the end of the day, end of every week, end of every month. And it's brought so much self awareness to me of the things that positively and negatively impact my life. So if you're someone who cares about your physical and your mental well-being, which I think you do because you listen to this podcast, then go and grab yourself a Today Well Spent. Use the discount code the process, one word in capitals, to get your discount. Okay, going back to the DJ story now. Like this is your thing now. What do you envision? I mean, are you someone who sets lofty goals? You set 1 year, 3 year, 5 year goals? You would go with the flow guy? What's your approach to how you've cultivated all this, what others would see as like success in your life?
Yeah. I feel like this is a safe space to talk freely when lots of people, I don't know, you're the same. You're a dreamer as well. You say stuff and people look at you and go, this guy's nuts. Or this guy's just, what's he talking about? Um, Back in, you remember, Kahal, right?
Yeah.
He's a mutual friend for reference. He's started working, I don't think this is a secret. He started working with a guy who's essentially a business coach. And he was telling me about this growth he's gone through with this guy. And I was like, do you know what I need? And it's not I need someone, I don't have a boss, right? I need someone, it's not even about holding accountable. It's like, I need a bit of a change. This is a really important part of the story, actually, which is how we've even got to this music part. And anyway, started working with this guy, and I'd say some things to him, which I would think were for me like a dream, and he'd go, "That's nothing." This guy's like almost talking my language a little bit. For example, he told me this guy wanted to work with him. He owned pharmacies in Middle East, and he was like, he's got 14 pharmacies, and he's like, "I'm not going to work with you unless you want to build 2,000." He's like a big, big, big guy in terms of that. So when I started working with him, that kind of like opened up everything. To be honest, let me give you a really cool anecdote. We were talking about Dana White, the UFC president. He went through that health journey and the guy predicted his death. We were talking about that. Then we were talking about how cool that is that someone can predict your death, but at the same time, that's pretty dark, right? But Dana White changed his life because of this prediction method. So we were talking about this. And then he said to me, "How long do you want to live till?" And he was like, "Go on, tell me. How long would you like to live?" So I'm like trying to work it out. And I said 120. And he was like, "Why did you say 120?" And I was like, "Well, I'm 34. I've just kind of gone past 30, which means I'm only a quarter of the way through. Obviously, 120 is still ridiculous." And he's like, "Why didn't you say 500?" Obviously, I'm like a little bit taken back. And the point he was making was, again, this is slightly different when we're talking about health, but I used what is average as an anchor. And his point was, don't use society's anchors to like stop your own thinking and dreaming. Don't let someone else decide what is your 120 or whatever. He's like, why not? Why can't you live to 500? Who knows what's going to happen in the next 20, 30 years? Like just, and that was like a big moment for me, kind of going, you can do anything. So to go back to your question about what I want to do and where I'm going to go, like the plan is to, no joke, I wrote a few days ago, I want to headline festivals in the next 5 years. And if it's not 5 years, it's 7 years. And if it's not seven, it's nine. I don't think there's many people will have approached it the way I have. Not that I'm doing anything special, but like I'm not coming from like a music background. I'm coming from like a business and professional kind of sport background. A lot of these people are like creatives, and like, and that's not throwing shade at all, but like I'm coming in kind of with like a structured approach with like a plan with him, and there's like, almost KPIs, if you like. I don't think many people are attacking it in that manner. It's like, cool, you need to do this by this. Even, for example, he said to me, you need to message 50 DJs this month. This was a few months ago. And I was like, oh my God. So I was like, cool. I messaged 50 DJs on Instagram, some of the biggest DJs in the world. 24 replied.
What was the question?
I had, oh, my phone's downstairs. I basically picked 5 questions and sent, depending on what the answers were and how much I learned as I went along, I'd send a different question to them. But I'm fairly new in producing. So it's like, what kit would you start off with? Are there any courses? Are there any books? That was kind of like almost one question. What was something that held you back that shouldn't have held you back at the time? And none of the answers are any different to what you'd expect. It's like it's consistency, effort, output. And you know what? Some of them were like, bro, you can do it. Like, just go and do it. And I'm getting these DJs who are some of the biggest in the world going, you can go and do it, lad. Um, again, that's encouraging and that's fuel on the fire. But messaging the 50 DJs is kind of like a KPI driven thing. And then he was like, again, how many DJs are using LinkedIn? He was like, pick your 10 favorite record labels. So I did. And he was like, cool, now go on LinkedIn and not Google, search for these record labels. And then I added the people from Defected and Nervous. These are all big record labels. Started messaging people. I got a lot less response on LinkedIn, almost no response. But I think that's because it's more formal, right? Instagram, someone could just message back with a text or it looks like a short text. But that's the kind of approach we're taking. I just went through I don't even want to call it a rebranding. We'll call it a branding exercise. Two amazing girls I'm working with, and they've kind of brought female energy to the party, if you like. Content and whatever is like one thing, but like it's got to look a certain way. You've got to have colors and you've got to have font, and it can't just be something you've made online. And everything needs to be as it should be, right? If I want to be a brand, everything needs to look consistent and be part of you. So I went through like really in-depth conversations about the darkest moments of my life and like what represents me, and they put together this document, and then from there we've now got this branding kit, and my website will be ready next week, I think. So yeah, the plan is to go nowhere but the top, which is why I'm like trying to get rid of things and yeah, hone in on it and make it come through now.
So it's not because you're doing I think there's a very important part to this puzzle that you're sharing, which is it's not just have like big lofty goals and dreams. There's a method to this as well. So it's like you're stating the lofty crazy goal, the lofty crazy dream, but then there is a step-by-step process that you are putting in. And you're almost treating your dream like you said, like it's a job. You've got KPIs you've got to hit, and then you're moving the goalposts are just slowly moving forward.
Yeah, I guess that's a representation of how much influence he's had on me. That wasn't me in November.
Hmm.
I didn't have these things, and we've already, again, even this week, where I've put out significantly more content right now with an angle that I don't think anyone's ever done before with this tour I'm doing and
I love
whatever.
it.
My and it's not about just followers, but like my views and shares and all these things are going much way, way, way more exponential than ever before. But that was because of a strategy after like taking some time to think about what content and blah blah blah. Whereas before November it wasn't. He knows not a lot about music and social media and things like that. However, he understands data and he's like, how many people have you reached this week? How many times have you posted? Who can you connect with that you don't know about right now? He went to Harvard, he's got a huge network. He put out a thing last week about he wants me, I've probably sharing too much now, but whatever, we're in there. He wants me to fundraise. I don't want to fundraise. I feel like I don't need to fundraise. Yes, you can raise money and build a team and move faster, but I'm like, I don't need to give away equity to, I couldn't go and borrow money or use my own money or strap, like I'm happy to go to zero if I tried rather than just go and take money of someone else just because they're an investor. Anyway, so he reached out to his network, and I've got 4 calls next week with people who work in the music industry on how these people um, build their revenue streams. Where do they set up their company? Like artists are global these days. Like I live in Hong Kong, but is it the smartest place to actually set up, my DJ business or whatever it's going to be? So he's brought in the structure. That isn't me, to be honest.
But you got to execute still.
No, no, absolutely. And we have a call every Monday. And this week, he was like, I don't feel like you came very prepared today. And I was like, maybe not because of, but I did. And he's like, I don't care. He's like, this is already a commitment. You don't drop a commitment to add a new one in. He's like, if you're doing the DJ tour, wherever, he's like, that's on top of your commitment. So he kind of gave me a bit of a hiding on Monday. But again, that's why I'm like paying him, and that's why he's good.
So Benny, what's your because even I'm listening to this now and I'm thinking about like my own dreams and my own goals, and I'm questioning if my dreams and my goals are big enough.
Oh man, that's what he did for me, honestly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so but if you were to share a framework for me and for everyone listening, which is okay, number one is like set your audacious big goal, and obviously it has to be something you believe in.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
have to genuinely want it. So I feel like that's a bit of a loophole that we get pulled into sometimes. We get this pressure that social media tells us to have these big lofty goals, and we pull out something from thin air that we don't actually truly maybe want or desire. But then what are the steps now? What's a framework that you can give us so that we can start setting big goals and crushing them?
I mean, do I even have a framework? I don't think necessarily. Let's go back to the guy with the pharmacy, for example. The guy is he wanted to grow his pharmacy business. Cool. Like you've got 14 stores. Like what's with no disrespect, I'm just talking into the guy's name's Bjorn, my coach. I'm talking in Bjorn language now. He's like, well, what's 16 or 18? Like, why do you need me for 16 or 18? You've already got to 14. You probably can. There's systems and ways that, let's take like Boots or Mannings or whatever these companies are. They had a system to get there, and it's like, cool. Are you also telling me that you can't be bigger than Boots? Why can't we? So it's like, what is that anchor? What's the average? And just because that's the average right now doesn't mean we can't go beyond it. So that's kind of what he does. It's like, how do we think bigger than that? I will give some context as well. The reason I started working with him, this was kind of before I made the decision to music. I wanted to start a new kids company. I didn't in the end because of wanting to pursue music. I had this kind of epiphany where I was like, am I going to go work 10 more years in like kids education and kids sport? Or do I really want to go and try this thing? And I was like, cool, I'm going to go try that. However, we were going to build
And I'm
a
sure that's
new,
not a decision. That's not a decision that happened overnight. I'm
no,
sure.
no, not at all. I even went to like Dubai and spoke to investors about setting up the business there. Like I spent my own money. Like that's how far along we were in this thing. But the company, he then sent me, the plan was nothing but $1 billion company. And I know it sounds ridiculous. That's just the way this guy is. It's like, that's not even a negotiable. Like if we're going to go build a children's technology company, $1 billion valuation is like the minimum. He would want 10, 20, 30, 100. Then he sent me all these case studies of different companies. He sent me one of On, the shoe company, and Peloton. And what he did was made me look at the start. Forget these companies who have however much in sales and all these customers. It was like, where did they start? And it was more about that, to go like, this is what's possible if you understand where they started. And that's where I was at the time with this idea, which maybe we'll come back to one day, and explore it, because it's still there. There's so much opportunity with kid stuff. But it was like, where did the On shoe start? It started with the guy. Do you know the story or not?
No.
He basically, they've got the cloud underneath.
So
Like
well, I don't even know what the on shoe is. What's the on
you
shoe?
do. You would. It's a running shoe.
Okay.
You
Oh
don't-
yeah.
Sorry,
The upside, yeah. It
that's
looks
it.
like
It's
little
got
man.
On.
Yeah. On,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's it. That's On running shoes.
I actually never knew it was called on.
That's what he calls it.
That's right. I'm pretty sure it's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, the guy who had this idea, he got hose. What do you call it? Like a hose pipe.
Yeah.
He cut hose pipe and he taped it on the bottom. And he had the idea that the pressure of the hose pipe would create
The spring.
the spring, which it is, and that's now what it is. But the prototype was this. So he's like, cool, here's the On company, which everybody knows globally, and it's like now one of the, but they were taking on Nike and Adidas and all these things, but like that's how he started. So this is a long way of me saying, he's like, where are you at the start? What is the dream? And just because someone got there doesn't mean you can't. You can be better than them, but these are kind of the steps. So there's like a big dream with what is the anchor. Let's go beyond that because you can be better, because that's what he's like. He's like a big dreamer. And then what are the steps to actually get moving? And that's where like, fundraising and high performing teams. He said to me this week, he's like, you need to sit next to David Guetta.
Hmm.
And I was like, right. I don't disagree with that, but it's easier said than done. Like I can't just go and sit next to David Guetta. And he's like, cool, but what about this and what about this? His point was essentially like, if I want to go to the top, he's like, you need to work with the best people in the world, whether it's like social media or marketing or branding or events or all these things. Like, who are the best? Let's actually just go and find out and ask them. You can just go and ask someone. They can say no. It's like me emailing the head of Nervous Records. This is like 30-year-old record label in New York, like one of the biggest house music record labels in the world. But I found him on LinkedIn and emailed him. No, he didn't reply, but doesn't mean he couldn't have, or there's no opportunity for him to come back at some point. Maybe I can send a follow-up and be like, hey, remember I sent this? So that's where he's like, let's
And what's the biggest takeaway you've taken from doing this, like reaching out to the people that maybe you respect in the industry and just sending messages? What have you learned from that?
I think, do you know what? I spoke about this week. It's actually, the biggest thing is actually putting yourself out there and just
Yeah.
messaging them, bro. Because like, I'm like, why should I overthink it? This person may read like even messaging the DJ, some of my idols, and going, is this cringy? I don't know. You just like question
Fear of
everything.
rejection.
That's it. You
Yeah.
question everything. You send it, and then 24 out of 50 came back, and I was like, that's why I kept score. I was like, I can't believe, of the first five, say four came back. The first four to, you know what I mean? I didn't
And what,
send 50 off the back, by the way. I sent
yeah.
10, because I learned as I went along.
And what was one of the biggest lessons here? Um, the limiting beliefs that you put in yourself.
100%. There's no doubt about it. And that's why I said when I told him where I was at and whatever, and when we first had those conversations, I can't remember what I told him what my dream was at the time, because that's gone. That's in the dust now. And he was like, that's nothing.
Yeah.
But he was the first person going to me, that's not big enough. Other people, and this is no disrespect to our peers or our community or whatever, people are kind of, we put ourselves to averages and what
Yeah.
is normal, and you see in the internet. But he was the first person to have going, that is, forget that. Like that's level one, and we're going to 100.
Yeah.
So I remember I was even in my flat going, oh wow, this is a different conversation.
You can do it. I have a very similar story with the podcast. I remember just starting this podcast and I was like, I've got 5 episodes. Who's going to want to come on my podcast? There's way bigger podcasts out there. How am I going to get like rock stars on it? And I remember sending a message to Sarah Sigmundsdottir, like 1.8 million followers. Never really met her in my life, seen her at a competition once, might have just said hi. And I remember sitting on that chair behind me and I had Instagram open and I'm thinking about who can I invite in the podcast. I think we'd had like 10 episodes by this point, maybe like 200,
I remember
200
this, by the way.
downloads.
I
Yeah.
remember her coming on.
Yeah. And I remember just sitting down and I remember just saying to the group, there's a few, I can't remember who was in it. I was like, why would she reply to me? Like, what's the point? And then I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to send a message. And so I kind of just wrote this message out, been a big fan of her for a long time. Very cool what she's done. You don't have to answer this question. You don't have to reply to me at all, but I just want to put this out there and I would love to have you on a podcast. And literally 10 seconds after I hit enter, it said typing. And I was like, oh my God, no way. Like, I remember just going mental in this office being like, and then she was like, I would love to come on the podcast. Let's do it. As simple as that. And I think that was a massive light bulb moment
Same
for me
thing,
as
man.
well.
It
And I
is
was
like she's the top of the sport.
Yeah.
At the time, she was absolutely top of the sport, right? Like
yeah. And
certainly one of the
just,
biggest personalities anyway.
And I think that, the biggest takeaway for me was like, what are you afraid of? It's like if someone doesn't reply, life goes on. You're not any worse off that you did that. And also there's 100 reasons why they might not have replied. It might not actually be because they didn't want to be in the show. I mean, I know I've definitely overlooked messages before,
For sure,
unintentionally.
man. Almost daily.
Yeah. And that's, giving them the benefit of the doubt and just, why not shoot your shot? And
Yeah.
I would say that maybe that's one of the most beautiful things I think that social media has given me the opportunity to do is how many doors it's opened and how many connections I've created just through, every day, just responding to messages and having conversations with people and reaching out and sending questions and leaving comments. And it's crazy to think how much opportunity has come for me and this business just by doing exactly that.
Yeah. And to go back a little step, but related is I'm actually no different as a person, really. I'm still Ben, but like through a little bit of a mindset shift from him going, that's not big enough. Here's some people who've done really well in these businesses, which are now billion-dollar businesses, but actually look at where they started. What did they do? Here are tools: Instagram, LinkedIn, Google. There's effort and it takes time. However, who knows who's going to come back? But once I would actually say anything to anyone now. I feel like I'm in that mindset where like, if I really saw someone, I'd literally walk up to them. Would I have been like that before? I'm fairly outgoing and confident anyway, but no doubt, without doubt, I now would. But that's only from him kind of putting a bit of pressure on me, putting numbers behind and going, you need to message 50, you need to add 30 people on LinkedIn. I know these numbers because they like felt at the time like, oh my God, I'm going to message 50 people. But that's led to evidence. Some, I don't even want to, is it success? I get it's a success. Somebody replying to you is success.
Well, because you set the goal of getting a response.
That's it.
So
but the goal was actually to send the
just send a
messages.
message, yeah.
Anyway, so through those, let's be honest, they're really small things. Completely changed my mindset and outlook on these things. Yeah.
You put a video out and you referred to this video. I don't think I've actually watched the video, but I've seen you talk about this video a few times on your Instagram. And it was referencing back to a time where you were at a really low point. And I think a part of that low point was financially, you were struggling. And I think there was a few other, key things that basically represented just where you were in your life. What was happening at that point in your life?
I feel like this is a good time for me to, let's come back to that in a second. I wanted to start with this and then I kind of forgot and we just went into it. I want to say thank you to you for having me on. I've had multiple opportunities to speak or been invited on a podcast to like talk about my story. However, I don't think we actually ever got there because of the and again, not throwing shade at anyone. This is a compliment to you as an interviewer, somebody who spent time. You've clearly taken time to think about my story, what you've seen online or what I've spoken about, whatever. And the questions you then came back with, I was like, I'm going to go on this podcast and actually tell my story today, as opposed to being invited one on. And then you get there, maybe the person hasn't prepped, and then they're not even asking me questions, which are actually anything to do with what I thought we were coming on to talk about. So yes, thank you for putting the detail in. You're an excellent interviewer, and I was clear in what you sent across, and the structure of what today was going to be about. Now we'll go back to that.
Thank you, by the way.
Yeah,
Thanks.
you're very welcome. So the majority of those videos were taken in January to March 2017. I started our company in January 2017, Rugby Tots I'm talking about. Before that, I was working for this other company. I told them I wanted to start Rugby Tots. However, I didn't want to quit their company. I wanted Rugby Tots to start as just a week. Well, actually, the plan was for only to be the weekends. Saturday, Sunday. I work for you Monday to Friday, and I do my own thing Saturday, Sunday. There's no... The only conflict of interest is that the children are of the same age. They didn't teach rugby. We were only going to be the weekend. We weren't even anywhere in the same locations. They said, yes, let's do this for 6 months. So let's come back in January and you will work till June, the end of June, and then we'll reassess. Do we carry on or whatever? I really didn't have much money at the time either. And the money I did have, we just spent on buying the franchise. I go away for Christmas to go see my ex-girlfriend, and we were doing long distance, went to Cape Town. Safe to say, when you haven't got a lot of money, Cape Town is a lot of money. Came back and I really didn't have a lot of money. So I was absolutely living paycheck to paycheck. And then they sacked me. They decided that they changed their mind and now I didn't have a job. I had no income. The income I had was coming from rugby, which I got $1,000 per match and I got $4,000 a month to pay towards my rent. My rent was $8,000. So my rugby covered my rent and I had nothing left.
Half of your rent.
No, my rent was 8K. So I had 4,000 from match fees.
Right.
And 4,000.
Okay, gotcha,
That's it.
gotcha.
Yeah. So they covered my rent. But I really didn't have anything saved and I just spent what I did have on the franchise. So I went through a really, really dark patch of like, Hong Kong is like people have, some of my friends were earning, they're PTs or teachers or lawyers and all these things. Like the city is like it's full of wealth and people, everything's expensive. It doesn't mean you can't live cheap. I learned how to do that, but it didn't mean that it wasn't easy for me. And I literally had to like fight for every meal. So like if there was an opportunity to earn any extra money, I was like, well, I've got no option but to do that. And when people were going out to dinner, I was like, well, I've got no option, but I can't do that. I had a credit card at the time, that got maxed out quickly. Getting calls from like HSBC being going like, you've not paid anything for 2 or 3 months. Like you need to pay everything back today. And I'm like, I can't even pay $100 back today. But I knew at that time that would never be forever. I didn't think that you could work as hard as I was and cared as much as I did and not eventually have money or success or whatever it was. So I think I took 7 videos maybe across this period of screenshots of my bank account, and I'm sitting in our old office where we're like renting a desk for $1,000 a month. Thankfully, that wasn't coming from my bank account. And there was the start of Rugby Tots, and then I guess it was an 11-month process to build the company to a point where I could actually employ myself. So up until this point, I wasn't even employing myself because I didn't have a visa because I got sacked. So I was on like a holiday trip back and forth to Macau, wasn't allowed to pay myself. And then we hired locals and generated money and had customers and whatever. And then you put a case forward and I actually got a visa after 11 months. And that was like, that still to this day was probably one of the best days of my life, being like, my God, I actually did it. That was one of the hardest times I'd ever been through. But I took these videos knowing that it wouldn't be like that forever. I've only actually shared one of them, but I think there's like 6 or 7. Again, I don't know, maybe it's cool to bring it up now. It will be even cooler in 10 years time. But that was why I took the videos, and that's what I'm referencing.
So did you take the video so that you could look back on that time one day and just as acknowledgement of what you've achieved and how far you've come?
As well as the belief that I could influence someone else down the line.
Nice. I
So at
like
the
that.
time I was watching, I really don't consume too much content anymore. But like at the start of the business, like we had like one class on a Saturday with 4 kids in it. You can't just like, maybe you can, but I was inexperienced at the time. You can't just like, people, it's like opening a gym. Doesn't mean people just come,
No.
you know? So I was spending a lot of time reading and consuming a lot of Gary Vaynerchuk content.
Legend.
And this is also a fun piece of the puzzle as well. He started Gary V. What was it called?
He's starting a family wine business, no?
Nah, yeah, but there was a split. What the hell was it called? It was basically his day of the life thing.
Oh right. Oh yeah.
Daily V. That's what it
Daily
was
V,
called.
yeah.
It was called Daily V. And then through this, and then he was talking about Wine Library TV,
Yeah.
which was his first piece of content. And I was like, I'm gonna start Rugby Tots TV. So that's what we did. So our first pieces of content, my first ever pieces of content, were Rugby Tots TV. So Brian's wife Stacey would take videos of the class, and then at the end of the class, I would host Rugby Tots TV. And the first episode is still all out there. It's so funny. I'm like, hey, I'm Coach Ben, and welcome to episode 1 of Rugby Tots TV. Like, stiff as a board. But then we put it on, Facebook was like booming at the time. So even like Instagram was barely a thing. There was no videos and whatever. So our Facebook and sharing in Facebook groups and whatever was what grew our business. But through those early pieces of content, was kind of what led to it. Anyway, all of this Gary V stuff was influencing me and going, he's sharing this stuff of him on Wine Library TV episode 1. This is like,
It's impacting you.
that's it. But I'm like, what's me 10 years from now?
Mhm.
We're not even at 10 years. We're at 8 years, 7 years. But that was the idea. It was like, cool, he's sharing content of his first ones. I'm like, well, this is my first piece of content. But alongside this Coach Ben one, I'm like, this is the reality of what's going on. But it was for my future self as well as hopefully influence someone. I actually got so many messages. I only shared a tiny bit of that one clip, but I got way more messages than I expected to from, quite frankly, lads going, that's really brave. Like, good on you. I've experienced this, da, 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 da. Thank you for opening up. I don't know. I didn't expect that to happen, but it was really nice reception. Yeah.
I think about that a lot with social media. I think about just the power of sharing, and I think a big driver for me is knowing that maybe this message might be helping someone else across the world going through a similar thing. And as you said, it's just really nice to get those messages when you know that you've touched someone or helped someone. And the truth is that 9 out of 10 people won't send you a message or give you a love heart or let you know that what you're doing is good. And so I think, you just I think the way that I think about it is like, I want to do it because it feels good for me, knowing that it might be helping someone. And it sounds like that's something that you think about as well.
Yeah, for sure. And that goes from um even from what we do with Rugby Tots, and like, you have no idea the impact you have on the kids. And I don't
Yeah.
do it for somebody to message me or the parent, whatever. But then also that makes me want to do it more.
Yeah.
You get, somebody will message you and go, thank you for sharing that, wherever. Go, cool. Like, maybe I should share more, or I'm glad I did that, or maybe I'll think about this in the future. Or if you get to a moment and go, should I share this or not? I'll go, well, cool. Well, remember the last time
Yeah.
I did, Ben messaged me and said thank you. So yeah, I do think, and I think it adds up and compounds, if you like.
Which I think it's important because that same realization reminds me that I need to let people know when they're doing good stuff.
Yeah.
Because the thought of someone who's doing really good stuff one day stopping what they're doing because they think they're not helping someone, that's a sad realization for me. And I don't want to be someone who's contributing to that. Someone's putting out great stuff to help the world, but because they're not receiving confirmation that what they're doing is helping people, they stop one day. They're like, what's the point? Why should I do it? And so I always want to make sure I'm going out my way to make sure that people know that, I appreciate them and they're doing good stuff.
Yeah, 100%. And I can honestly put a hand on heart and say I believe I'm the same, to the point where, like, as I spend more time in nightlife and amongst DJs and whatever in Hong Kong, like on Friday, I went to watch 3 of my friends play. They were all playing in different places. I just went to go and support, and it's like anything. If I'm there, like, supporting the DJ and have a good time, the other people around me, even if I don't know them, I literally went out on my own, but I went to support my friends, knew where they were playing. And then, because I'm having a good time, people are going, oh, do you know what I mean? If I'm
Yeah,
like
it's
influencing,
infectious.
or like, maybe the odd whistle or whatever it is to like get the crowd moving, everything influences that. My mate then has a better DJ set. Everyone has a good time, but I'm only doing it because I just want to actually support you as a friend. I gain, not that I don't gain anything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm doing it because I want to support you as a person, and you're going to do better, and we're going to get a tighter relationship and whatever. So
But it's funny then the good things that seem to happen when you do good things.
yeah, for sure.
And I think that's something that I've always thought with you, but in this conversation already has been very prevalent, is this idea of delayed gratification with you. There's a lot of things that you've done and you're still doing where there isn't an immediate feedback of success. And it's like, I just have to do this thing because one day in the future, something good's probably going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's missing a lot. I don't know. And I've definitely fallen into that trap in the past of, what's the point? You start putting in the work, you don't see return on investment. But at the same time, I've also really always thought that, you know what, just got to do good things that I enjoy doing, I'm passionate about, and I just truly believe that something good is going to
That,
come of it.
and
And to up to this point in my life, it's always proven
yeah,
to be
yeah,
right.
yeah, for sure. I couldn't agree more. And it's not having a belief in myself and what I think I can do from now and where I am right now is a different to a belief in going, I think things will be good. That's different to going, I think I can headline Coachella. Like they're different. I believe that if I do this, this, and this, good things are going to happen. I don't know what those good things are, but
Yeah.
it's more that rather than I think I can be, the best in the world. They're two different kinds of beliefs. It's going, you can't, as I said earlier, you can't work as hard, care as much as I do, and not do well eventually.
Mm.
It might take 20 years, but eventually, and that's kind of what the belief was of those videos. Like, I know one day you can't do all this and not work out.
Yeah.
Like, how does it not? It might take whatever, and you might end up spending X amount more and getting more debt. And it's not just about money. That was a big
Always
factor
had
at the time.
this vision. I think it was from Atomic Habits, Tom Cleary's book, where it's a stone cutter, and it says the stone cutter chips away at the stone 1,000 times, and on the 1,000th hit, a crack forms and the stone breaks. But you have to do 999 hits where nothing is happening,
Yeah.
but deep down something is happening, and eventually on rep 1,000, you achieve the result. And I always think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another kind of thing that's kind of relevant right now as well is there's been a few days where I've had these really amazing opportunities, work opportunities that have gone back to back to back. Back in November, I had this. I can't even remember what they were right now. I had rugby tots in the morning, and I went straight from there. I had basically had four big work things on this Saturday, four completely different things. It was like an MC event. I was DJing, I had rugby tots and something else. I've now got a guy called Paul who comes in and he's my videographer, if you like. But I was like, cool, I actually want to kind of document this, but as a one-off. Did it. And then again, same thing. I got really nice feedback on me documenting this day. It's not about
This
just
was a
day.
24-hour workday or something you
That's it.
did?
It was 20 hours. I started
Yeah.
at 8 a.m. and finished at 4 a.m. That's it. It was there you go. I'm glad that you
I
can
saw it,
record.
yeah.
There we go. Yeah. So that led to then me going, cool. What if I documented more? So then in January, it was like, cool. Spoke to Paul and we kind of came up with a deal. He spends a lot of time with me. I've got to pay him for his time, but I can't pay him actually what his rate is because I just can't afford that. But I'm like, come on this journey with me, and I know I'm going to get you more clients. And also, I've got rugby tots, and we can hire you for this, and we can do bits of got balls. So like, please reduce your price. Well, let's work together and go on a partnership. I pay Paul every month, and he deserves every single penny. But I'm like, oh my God, like I've got to pay. It's like paying. It's a lot. It's like paying two rents or whatever between all the stuff we do just with him. But again, I'm like, I know it's for my future. And like, I documented the first time I ever saw music production software. That's a lie. The first time I ever used music production software. I've got that on camera and documented. One day in the next 5, 6 years, when I'm headlining, someone go, well, that's what he did there. And there's literally a path and it's all documented. And I care more about that. What do I care more about that? I care about that so much. I don't know what I care about it more than, but like that journey and the fact it was documented means a lot to me, which is why I pay Paul every month. And even since we started that one shoot in November to then starting in January, we're only 6 months in, and like it's mad what we've documented already. To again to go back to your point, like the investment and whatever. If I look at the dollars, I'm like, that's a lot of money. But the reality is I'm doing what I want to do. And I care more about that than having more money in my account.
Do you think about balance? Is that I'm sure that's a question you get asked all the time. Because the reason I think you get asked that question is because I think you work a lot. We work a lot more than I think the average person. Um, and I'm sure there's a lot of people. Maybe I don't know if it's necessarily coming out of like envy or jealousy or discomfort. I think a lot of people can probably see what you're doing and feel uncomfortable because maybe deep down inside they think they should be doing that hard work. And sometimes seeing someone chasing their dreams when you know you're not chasing a dream can be quite confronting. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think
Do you get asked that question?
I do. And I also think people actually come from a concerning like point of view as well, as opposed to anything to do with like envy or jealousy. I think a lot of people actually hate my life, but they're like, actually like, are you doing too much? And I do think we haven't actually spoke about this yet, but kind of working with James and the bodybuilding and stuff, like
Yeah.
the discipline of doing the natural bodybuilding actually brought so much structure to my life that made everything actually easier. And when I finished my competition last year, I'm not gonna say I went off the rails, but like as far as like where I was to then finishing the competition to then the next 2 months, I'm not even talking about food or diet or anything like that. I'm talking about my overall life because I didn't have the structure and discipline of the bodybuilding. I kind of just lost my way a little bit in just how I even felt about myself. And it's not about doing more. It's about like, it's just about how you feel yourself, right? And even though I had felt like I had more balance when I was doing the bodybuilding than when I went out of it, when then time kind of,
And when you say balance, what is balance for you? And what made you feel like you didn't
when
have
I was doing the
balance?
bodybuilding, I was like really conscious, and I'm still like I've stopped. But when you're in competition phases or whatever, you're like so on the dime. I'm like, cool, I'm going to bed at this time and I'm waking up at this time. So that meant I was stopping this at this time. I'm not DJing after 9 because I'm in bed at 10. Whereas then you go off competition, like, cool, well, I'm not as strict on the clock right now. Balance for me is actually going to bed on time, to be honest.
Mm.
Um, and I again, like the nightlife stuff is amazing, but also like nightlife brings its own like side to it as well. And I'm glad I'm past my like super hard party phase, but it doesn't mean that I still don't enjoy going out. And I've taken myself off alcohol again because I felt myself leaning more towards like, because I don't work as much on the weekends now. You're cool. Well, you haven't got to be up at 8 a.m. So it doesn't matter if you're in bed at 1 like you used to be, or 2. Like maybe you can go home at 4, but the reality is then my body clock will wake me up. So the balance in a long way is actually me going to bed on time and getting 7, 8 hours. When I'm up, I'm like, I don't want to do anything more than this. Like,
Mm.
what do you mean making music, play music? Like that's what I want to do. It doesn't matter if I do that till 10 o'clock at night. Balance is me going to bed.
Tell me about this bodybuilding journey because I feel like that's been a pretty wild journey of yours as well. I think you've always been a pretty fit guy. You obviously played rugby. You trained here for a long time.
Yeah.
Where did that all
So
start?
so it started. Well, the start of it is kind of like geographically, to be honest, because I lived close by to the gym, so I'd walk to the gym, but my office was in Shungwan, and I spent a lot of time working in Shungwan. The commute to work every day was kind of just getting on top of me. So I was like, cool, I'm going to go move to Shungwan. And then I was like, oh God, the commute to the gym is actually now a bit of a pain. So then with the bits of COVID and whenever I started doing build program with Liam online and really enjoyed doing that. And I did that for a long time, which felt I was like still part of Coastal, but like I couldn't, it didn't make sense for me to move to my work to then travel back anyway. So that was part of it, to be honest. And then going from a structured CrossFit program for 2 years, which is what I spent here, to then going into, I guess, let's call it, I don't even want to say hybrid because hybrid's like running. And anyway, it was bodybuilding with a bit of CrossFit, right?
Yeah,
Which I know you guys still do. But I was doing that and I actually really enjoyed going back to that versus, the heavy CrossFit.
clean
That's
snatches.
it,
Yeah,
all of that. More particularly because I couldn't do some of the stuff like, I really struggled with snatching despite all my best efforts. And we don't need to go into that. So I went back into more bodybuilding type training and really enjoyed that with a little bit of CrossFit. My brother is a PT, but Jack went from rugby and he wanted to go and he worked for us for a long time and he was transitioning from rugby and rugby tots into PT and bodybuilding. And he started working with James Campion, and he went through this mad. Not only did he look completely different, it was like the stuff he was saying, the discipline, and he just like literally changed um, through doing hard things. And it don't matter how tired you are, but you got half an hour cardio to do, or it don't matter how hungry you are, you can't eat X, or it doesn't matter how much you want to eat that. You're like, well, you've got to cook your meal prep. So my brother went through this, but I saw it and heard it, him change. And I was like, I wouldn't mind having a bit of that.
And what about that? Did you want to have a
He
bit
was
of?
just getting me fired up, bro.
Yeah.
Like honestly, he'd call me when he was on doing his cardio, whatever. He's on his roof at 10:30 at night or whatever it was, and he'd call me and he'd just say shit about him feeling like he could do anything. And then I see him go do his competition. My brother was natural, but he didn't enter a natural competition. So he had no chance on stage, but still seeing my brother, I'm like, I can't believe that's Jack. Like, we like rugby lads. You're not that lean. You're kind of a little bit chunky. Maybe you've got a
Yeah.
big chest or big shoulders or whatever. Like, not many lads are anyway, are they? Not many lads are like super lean or dialed in. And just seeing my brother like that, I couldn't believe it. But the same thing, I'd seen all the steps. 16 weeks and whatever it was. And then I've made a habit of this now. It's like I'll on purpose, if I really want to do something, but I need to take a plunge, I'll like actually post about it online to hold myself accountable.
Mm.
So I was like, I'm going to do a show next year. This is my coach. This is what I'm doing. But it was me saying that online that like holds me accountable to it anyway. Worked with James, and then it wasn't a show, but I had this ridiculous DJ gig I got hired for, which was like a 1940s, sounds bizarre, like Italian program party for a super high end like client and community. I've never worked for them before, and they wanted me to wear this cape essentially, but they didn't want me to wear a shirt. I told James, and he was like, "Cool, let's get lean." So that was my first time of actually going through, a real diet heavy program with cardio and all that. Never done it before, and got down pretty lean. And then less than a year later, then did my first show. And again, same thing. Just really enjoyed the structure and the discipline and whatever. And the first one you do, you're like, cool. I just don't want to end it there. So then it was 8 months between the show and the next one, which actually really isn't that long in bodybuilding terms to try and grow, particularly as a 34-year-old natural athlete. Anyway, did the next one, 6, 7 weeks ago. Really enjoyed it. In the more kind of advanced competition, and thought I was best third, at worst fifth on stage. Top five is placing, and he calls out fifth, and I'm like, I've got fourth. And he calls out fourth, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm third. And he calls out third, and it wasn't my name, and I'm like, am I delusional of like what I actually think I look like? And my brother on the side, they're like, whatever. It's a bodybuilding subjective, right?
Yep.
The local guys have a natural silhouette that I don't have. I'm not a wide guy. I can get really lean, but I don't have a tiny waist and wide shoulders. So they've got this natural silhouette that I don't have. They weren't lean and they didn't have more muscle. The top two did. You guys are winning. But then the next to us. Anyway, I was gutted. And then the next day I'm back in the gym because I'm like angry and whatever. And I'm actually really glad that I didn't place, because I'm scared the same thing would have happened as last time where I kind of lost complete structure. So I'm definitely going to do another one again next year. I don't know how I feel about doing another one after that. We'll see when we get there. So yeah, but the bodybuilding thing is, it gives me structure. I play team sports all my life. I'm on my own. I kind of like it. I spend so much time with people, events, nightlife, kids, rugby tots, whatever. I'm in the gym on my own. I like it.
Was the disappointment of that last show the fact that you didn't place?
Yeah. And the reality is, it makes no difference. I still work to get in the same shape. Whether I came third or that meant I either came sixth or seventh. There was 12 of us. They eliminate the first 5, and then there's 7 of you left, and then they pick a top 5. So I was 6th or 7th. I don't actually know.
Did you have a goal though? Did you have a goal going into it?
I wanted a place, yeah. And then you get there and you see the guys, and again, it's all subjective, and you go, you can tell, like, you guys are winning 1 and 2 without doubt. But I don't know who's winning out of you two, but you two are top 2.
Yeah.
And then the rest of us, but I'm like, oh, I'm here, I'm there or thereabouts. And even watching the videos back, my bodybuilding is also interesting from a posing point of view. It looks easy. It's not, man. Like to put yourself in the best position as possible, flex, but also not look like you're flexing. I do men's physique. There are like certain standards of, your lats need to be spread and you need to look wide, but also your waist needs to look tiny. And that's what posing is. You try and find your best look. That's happens over years and months of practice, that I don't care about as much. But you should if you
You
want to
need
do
to.
well in the competition. I care more about my physique than the competition. But when it came down to it, and then I was gutted. I was disappointed. I was also like a little bit shocked, but glad I didn't, because back in the next day, I then went away for on holidays for 4 weeks. I just trained with my friends, no program, bodybuilding, but no program. Came back July 1st, and now I'm 3 weeks into my new program and loving it with James.
So it sounds like the thing that attracting you to bodybuilding is discipline. Obviously the on what's required for that. There's routine, there's structure. It's hard. I think a lot of people just look at bodybuilding and think that's easy. You just lift weights and reduce your calories a little bit, but there's pretty tough times in that where you're
Yeah,
extreme deficits, low energy, got to get the work done,
yeah.
sacrifices. Go.
Well, no, I want to bring up something that you've spoken about heavily on social media as well. It's like this, you're like 13, 14, whatever. You're like, I want to be a PT. Look at these guys with the bodies or whatever. I actually always had this like dream of being, let's call it a men's health cover model or whatever. Or like, or at least that is,
Yeah,
do you know what? I probably idolized that way more than I did a rugby player.
yeah,
The reality
me
was
too.
like that body is like, how the hell do you do that? So I also had that inside me that is like a teenage thing where like I'd been training for, I'm not going to say I've been training hard for 20 years, but what I mean is I've been in the gym for 20 years by this point. Whereas only now am I getting into a place where I actually look a lot closer to that guy who I idolized at 13. You know where Rob Rich is?
No.
Okay, he was like he's one of the OG YouTubers, but he's a British guy, and he was on the front of, I can't remember which brand it was, the supplements and whatever. And I was like, what the hell is this guy? And then YouTube becomes a thing, and you're like, oh my god, that's the guy from the supplements or whatever. And I used to watch everything that
Mm.
Rob Richards did, but I didn't look anything like him. And then Twitter was, I was a heavy Twitter user when I was like 18, 19, 20, whatever. I'd like tweet Rob Richards like all the time. He was replying to his fans or whatever. So, despite what you just said, there's also an element of my like teenage self and wanting to look a certain way. I don't know why. Is it an acceptance thing? That's like real soul searching, right? Like I
Well,
know
that was going to be my next
you've
question.
spoke about it a lot. I
Yeah,
know, yeah. I read your stuff and go, that's me as well. Actually, I've
yeah.
experienced all of these things.
I was going to say, have you found that the feelings, or looking back at teenage Ben, or this, the desire to look a certain way and maybe feel a certain way, has that gotten more profound the more bodybuilding you've done?
I think that there's a few sides to this. One is I actually was an incredibly skinny teenager, like so skinny to the point where the bones in my shoulders were like
Were
fully
you
exposed.
like a skinny ripped teenager, or were you like
Oh, don't get me wrong. Like maybe I had a six pack, but I was like I'm
skinny?
not a big guy now, but
Yeah,
I'm like I was a bean and I hated it, and my clothes didn't fit me, and I had like I don't even know what it's like your AC
you're
joint.
80,
Like
yeah,
it would point through my t-shirts. Like I was so conscious of it. There was a teacher. This is a funny story. There's a teacher in school who actually was a fitness model. He was like my idol. He'd go on the treadmill before school and was doing fasted cardio. I was like, cool. Well, I'm going to do fasted cardio, even though I was the skinniest guy. But that's what he did.
yeah.
He told me to eat a loaf of bread a day to put on weight. Is that a good idea? No. However, for my budget at 13, 14, 15 years old, my mother wasn't prepared to like buy me any more food than I was already eating. And he was like, you should eat a loaf of bread a day. So I did for like a year, and I did put on weight. And then by the time I got to like 17, 18, I had put on weight, and I was now perhaps a normal size rugby player, as opposed to being like the skinny guy whose shirt doesn't fit. To come to now, I think there's a point. There's even like I just went to Ibiza like 4 weeks ago and like stayed in shape after the competition and like worked super hard on it. And the reality is, when you get there, nobody really cares, to be honest. Maybe someone will go, "Oh, you look." No one really cares. Do you know what I mean? Um,
Got our own shit to worry about.
yeah. But how did I feel myself? I felt fine, and that's what it was. Like I know how many times before where I felt not fine or conscious. And that's like another thing together where perhaps you shouldn't care or whatever, but the reality was I did. And when I used to get called skinny, or like someone would make a comment, not even people taking like the piss, they'll just be like, maybe someone will just call you skinny, and they don't even know that's a bad thing.
No,
For lots of people, skinny is good, but it would like cut me
it would
deep.
trigger you. Yeah.
And I saw somebody a few weeks ago and they were like, "You've lost so much weight." And there was a point where that would kill me, but I'm like, "Yeah, but I know what's underneath my shirt."
But does it still trigger you a little bit?
Not at all.
Really? That's
But
good.
only through doing the bodybuilding and the show and kind of getting comfortable with actually just being lean
Mm.
and not, my t-shirts are not, I'm not big in t-shirts, but like I know what's underneath and I feel comfortable. I now feel comfortable. Do I feel amazing? I don't know, but like I feel it, like, let's call it peace. And I never felt at peace before, to be honest.
Because there was a point where I remember you had set the goal of cracking 100 kg.
And I got to 105, by the way.
Yeah.
Tick.
Yeah. So was that goal of breaking 100 kg? By the way, listeners, this is like getting over 100 kg. I didn't think you'd been over 100
Nah,
kilograms.
I hadn't. I
Yeah.
was like, at the time, I was about 93, 94, and the heaviest I'd been at that point was 96. This is actually a good point because that is tapping into me being like, I'm not big enough,
Yeah. Right.
which is ridiculous. I probably just didn't have enough muscle on show at the time for me thinking I wasn't big enough. I was like,
But it's funny, isn't it? Because I've always looked at you and I've always thought you're a big guy.
yeah. And now I'm actually like significantly smaller than I have been for most of my adult life. I'm right now probably 83 kilos.
Yeah.
Which is really light for me. But when I was like 93, 94 training here, I was small in my head. I
Mm.
think the reality was I just didn't have much muscle on show and I felt small when I like had a higher body fat percentage. I don't know. But that's what it was. Interesting to see my brother. It was, do you know what? If my brother hadn't done it, I don't know where I'd be with regards to that. But he'd gone through this thing. He got super skinny, but I knew what he looked like with his shirt off. And now I'm happy where I am. On purpose, I'm not putting on weight right now. We're doing like really just kind of borderline maintenance for my next prep and whatnot. Like, what's the point putting on 10 kilos to cut it all again? I
Yeah.
think I put on like 500 grams between two shows.
Pretty crazy. You even know that. But you
Well,
have to.
just that's because James's data, man. Like, I have it all.
Yeah.
James's data.
See, it's funny that the older I've gotten, the more I've moved away from data, because I think I was always a big data guy as well. And I wanted to like calculate the smallest nuances and change. And I'd always use myself as a bit of a guinea pig. So any experiment in training or protein intake or carbohydrates or whatever I was doing, sleep, I'd want to track it to know that what I'm doing is, which way it's moving me. Is it moving me towards the needle, towards the goal, or away from it? But as I've gotten older, I want less and less of that now. And I probably am at a point where I feel the most comfortable with my skin ever. I'm not totally comfortable in it. Don't get me wrong though. Like I still think when a photo of me will pop up, I'll still have a bit of a, do I want to look at this? And I'll try and tell myself before looking at it, don't judge, just look at it for what it is, and or remind myself of all the triggers that are bubbling beneath the surface that want to come up about the small kid, the non six pack kid, then the chubby kid. Like there's phases throughout life where I have tried to combat the small kid, and it's backfired in another way, and it just created a new insecurity, and then those insecurities have just you know stacked
Yeah, for
themselves up
sure.
over 37 years now, where I'm at the point now where I'm like, you know what, just gonna be.
Yeah, I think it takes a long time to get there. And to add on to that as well, which has been a learning process for me since working with Paul, my videographer. He's now videoed me in every state, like how I could look,
Yeah.
super dressed up, and like in the bin in the gym. Do you know what I mean? Or like whatever. And I've just got to a place now where I'm like okay with I'm like that's fine. Like the less I care about the vanity of this video and how I look and whatever, like like my hair or like how tight is my shirt or like we did a gym video and like it was quite hard because in my head I'm like I've been training hard with James here, but like the camera also sometimes there's two sides to it. Just because the camera looks like that doesn't actually mean you necessarily
Mm.
look like that in real life.
Yeah.
But also maybe you do, and that's fine, and you also need to be okay with that. So like through seeing myself over the last 6 months in at least one video per week, long form, and I'm not shooting it. I don't know what I look like.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
now,
almost therapy in a way.
it is. And now I'm kind of like, whatever, I'm at peace with it. Actually, it's good to say why I wore this shirt because I don't know if you know, EXO is the Weekend. Weekend is like my favorite artist. It's
Yeah.
like were the same age and like came up on his music when he was like 19, 20, 21. This shirt is like 13 years old. I did a DJ set today and I wanted to at some point reference The Weekend and kind of XO and its influence on my life. And then it just so happened that today was the podcast day as well. I'm like, keep my t-shirt on. However, I've been in this t-shirt sweating since 8 o'clock this morning because we went to, it'll come out by the time we post this. I did a DJ set in the cable car in the Buddha today.
Awesome.
But get into there, getting up the Buddha, all these things, sweating profusely. But I was like, cool, I'm going to keep my t-shirt on because it's part of my story and it's nice that it's today the same thing. But 6 months ago, I'd been like, no, I need to change my t-shirt and shower and do my hair
I
and
thought
whatever.
you
I'm
smelled
like,
quite nice, to be fair, when you came in.
you're very kind. But I'm like, this is me, whatever.
Tell me about this the sort of challenge you're doing with the DJ. I think you're DJing in a different spot every day in Hong Kong for.
It's not quite every day. So if you remember
I
me,
watched the IKEA set, by the way.
yeah, thank you.
It was good.
That's definitely my most shared video ever. The internet has
Yeah.
enjoyed it. So me and George did the rowing challenge for Men's Health, if you
Yeah.
remember.
Of course. Yeah.
We went on tour. We did 20 dates in November. We literally moved the rowing machines everywhere. I had this idea to do this DJ tour. I'm like, well, if I can do that with a rowing machine and row 25K, don't tell me I can't take my music and take it to different places and record it. The kit is now available to do that. There's two sides to it. One is to create ridiculous content in stupid places like IKEA. The other side of that is me trying to actually grow my library of YouTube DJ sets so I can send to clubs, promoters, and whatever, rather than me having 20 DJ sets in my little office like DJ setup because it's pretty boring. I'm like, cool, well, let's do it in other places. The equipment is not quite the same. However, if I can do good stuff on this equipment, which is limited, imagine what I can do on more advanced equipment. And then it was like, Hong Kong is amazing, right? There's unlimited amazing spots here. So I'm doing 20 DJ, it's not every day, doing 20 DJ sets across July in random spots. And the plan was to create short form content, long form content. And then again, it goes back to like putting yourself out there. Like I said this yesterday, I was walking into IKEA going, I'm 34 years old. I'm going to IKEA with a backpack on with a DJ set, and then you tell me you're going to pull up somewhere and DJ. There's one side that I was going, you childish bastard. Like, surely there's better things you could be doing in your life. And then the other side, it was going, this is me fully putting myself out there. Am I going to get in trouble? Not that I want to get in trouble. Am I going to? I don't know. But I'm not doing anything that bad. I'm just playing music. Is it that bad? Instead of playing it from my phone, I'm playing it from DJ decks. Why is someone playing a phone on the speaker? These are all the questions I'm asking myself. But again, I've got over another hurdle of not giving a fuck, if you like, of putting myself out there. So all of those different ideas kind of led to this tour. I did one in collaboration with AIA. I've got a full production coming out inside the wheel. It's amazing. I played music I fully want to play, which is what I want to do. I've got a collaboration with Shake Shack inside the IFC store this Saturday. I saw a DJ set in McDonald's in the UK and it's wild. Not that I want to do that, and Hong Kong hasn't got that in it. But that led to this, and I was like, cool, I'm going to reach out. I got linked to the head of global marketing for Shake Shack via some emails. She put me in touch with the Hong Kong team. We sat on calls. This is what I want to do. They agreed to everything, and now I'm doing a set in Shake Shack this weekend. Just put myself out there.
I love it.
Yeah, random. It'll be very. I mean, inside the store. I didn't want to go outside the store. Like, why? Let's make it inside the store. Make like a mini, not a rave, but an experience inside a burger store. It's ridiculous. So yeah, that's it. Put myself out there.
Love it, Benny.
Yeah.
What do you do? What do you do to balance out all this craziness that you do? Like, have you got any mindfulness practices? Do you meditate? Are you a journaler?
Yeah.
Do you go on? I mean, I bumped into you many a time when I've been doing kind of like been sitting on grass doing some meditation or something, and you've walked past and you look like you're in the zone listening to something or doing something. What are your practices?
I don't think you can be going for a walk, to be honest. I feel like, even if you're having a good day and you go for a walk, I think like I come up with all these ideas. If I'm having a bad day and I go for a walk, everything feels like I've like thought it out in my head. Whereas like I think if you sit and ponder, you are not going to come up with any good ideas and everything's going to be worse. So I definitely enjoy just going for a walk. Me and my brother will go for long walks and just like get everything out. Having my brother here, it's the same for you. Like people in Hong Kong, lots of people come, expats as well, come to live here. They have friends and whatever, but like having my brother here is amazing. He's like my best friend and we'll talk it out and we're good. I will be completely honest and say that my journaling is at a point where I have to I have to go back and fill it in. I've been journaling for like 4.5 years now. And at one point that was like my main thing I was doing. Whereas now it's a case of I'll go back and write what I did as opposed to using it as a daily practice. That's me being honest. Oh, well, I need to get back there. Um, and this is random, but you know what I really like doing? I don't really watch much TV and whatever, but you know, if I do watch Netflix, I put animal programs on.
Animal,
Yeah. I love any,
like animal documentaries.
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
like,
me too.
yeah, bro. And I'll put it on and I think it's the colors, it's the noises, it's David Attenborough.
Yeah,
And I'm like fully relaxed. Like there's all these amazing, exciting programs and whatever on Netflix. I'm like, I want to chill and watch animals.
yeah, I'm the same.
So that's it. If yeah, I'm a but I wouldn't say I'm like, you know, like people who have like who really into animals and they know, like, especially like kids, they know all the facts and whatever. I'm not
That's
that.
me.
Oh yeah, I'm not that. I just like watching it. You know,
Yeah.
and maybe I'll remember stuff, but I'm not like an animal
I
nerd.
think I just grew up with Animal Planet, National Geographic, and Discovery Channel. And if like there was no cartoons on, that was like, you'd flick through the channels when you get home from school, and it's like, well, there's no cartoons on, there's no sport on, there's no X Games on, Discovery Channel. And then I just accumulated a lot of knowledge about random animals. My wife now is always like, it's unbelievable how much you know about the animal kingdom. I'm like, I think that was
That's good.
just a childhood of watching all
That's
that
good.
stuff.
I feel like I need to say this as well. It's been amazing to like feel like I just got an awful lot off my chest
Yeah.
and actually shared my story. I also want to be completely transparent and say like this as really grateful for everything that's happening and for again none of it is through it's like you put in effort, you get output. It's not all exciting and I'm not happy all the time. What is happiness and whatnot? Like I definitely still have times where I question everything and how do I feel about myself. A lot of that, this is where journaling and mindfulness does have a massive place where it can just, and that's what they're saying with the kids. Like, it doesn't matter how bad your day is. I coached last week for the first time in a while because we've not in regular class. I do always do regular classes, but we're in summer term, right? And I was away for all of June. So I didn't coach for like 6 weeks. And I get caught up in my world, if you like, of, music and all these things and events and nightlife and whatever, as well as just the business. And I just spend the morning with the kids and I was like, oh my God, this is actually who I am. This is what I want to feel like. But I hadn't felt like that for 6 weeks and I forgot how I felt in that moment. So I definitely have to what am I trying to say? I'm just trying to say that like not everything is rainbow and bubbles. Like it's actually really hard. I definitely
Yeah.
have hard days. Sometimes I'm a really good sleeper, but sometimes I cannot sleep through sometimes the pressure, sometimes whatever concerns, or maybe I didn't do what I should have done today because of X, and then I'm thinking about why I didn't do it, and then you're like, well, your habits weren't very good today, and you didn't journal like that, and you actually got up and spent half an hour on your phone when probably you should have got your journal out and thought about how you were feeling and whatever. So just want to be really transparent and go that it's definitely not all rainbows and bubbles, and like managing yourself. This is me talking to myself aloud as well. Is so important from mental health and going for walk and training. And I actually tried to switch my training recently. So the idea was that when I finished my competition, I'd move my training to the night and I'd wake up and do music. Wake up first thing, you attack the music. I try to. The reality is, I don't feel like myself until I've trained.
Yeah.
I need to go to the gym, and it's ingrained in me now that I train in the morning, and I had to go back to doing that, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is me again. This is me. This is me. So yeah, it's not really easy. It's not all fun. I'm really grateful. I just want to be transparent and say
No, I think
that it's not easy and it's definitely not always enjoyable.
I think it's very comforting to hear, because I think a lot of people see, what you put out on social media, and it kind of just looks like this guy's just crushing it. He's living the dream. He's doing what he loves. He clearly loves it. But I think it is really important to have that dose of reality. But do you find that the number of bad days that you have are on the decline relative to past Ben? Is that something you think about?
That's a really good question, and I would say right now this is me kind of like putting myself in a like somewhat of an unknown territory. Like I'm a complete new boy in this game of music and nightlife and whatever, and that is another learning process for me. As audacious and as bold as I feel at times, the reality is I am still human and I am a new person and I'm late in this. But what can I do? I can be friendly. I can show my intentions are honest, and I can be committed, and I can show output. I want the best for everyone. I'm not in this to compete. I'm in this for us all to do better. So I like have to kind of remind myself of those things. But I would say more recently, and they're not bad days, but I would definitely say I've had more recently than I have for a long time
Mm.
because of this adjustment and me having. There are doubts. Despite everything I've already said in this podcast, I'd be lying if I said I didn't doubt myself at times. But I've got a better balance of going, I've got evidence, I've got proof, and I've got a roadmap now. And I
Yep.
kind of revert back to that as well. But I would say I've had more bad days than good days in more recent times. But that is also all down to my head, not because of anything that actually happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I agree. I agree with all that. And it's nice, always nice to hear someone else share it. Um, I still have bad days too,
Yeah,
but I think what I've definitely got now that I'm always trying to work on is just the tools to help me navigate bad times.
100%, bro.
And I think that I have a really comprehensive toolbox now. And again, that toolbox is stacked up with evidence of trying it working, trying it again, it working again, and then at some point being like, okay, this is something I've got to bring with me, for the future. And I think that's why I have I have such diligent routines that are just non-negotiables for me
Yeah,
because I have slacked off on journaling in the past. And when I pulled myself back out of that slack period, it was a reminder to self that it was like when you don't journal, everything's a bit harder. So, reminder to future self, don't slack off on it. It's the same with training. Like some days you don't want to train, but I know that every time I do stop, and it hasn't happened many times in my life, to be honest, but generally speaking, life isn't as good.
yeah,
When I go to bed late, like generally speaking, life isn't as good. If I skip my stretching and my meditation before bed, then my sleep isn't as good. Again, note to self, like stretch and meditate before you go to bed.
yeah. Again, I'll open up just slightly further. It is, I would say, the thing I'm struggling, or I've been, and again, it's a discipline thing. It's not like there's any secret pill or anything you can do. Like I'm trying to, push my career forward. And a lot of that, quite frankly, is online stuff. Like people care about what your profile says and how it looks and all these things. And even with my team and the people that help me produce all these things together, we spend a lot of time online and we're creating, for me, a ridiculous amount of content right now. For other people, it's normal. But for me right now, it feels like there's YouTube and there's Instagram, but there's long form, there's podcasts, there's all these things. I spend a lot of time on my phone right now and I'm not fussy with the editing, or as I said, the vanity's gone out of me for now, but there's still so much going out. Like I've got hour-long DJ sets going out every day almost. That's a lot of content. I'm spending a lot of time on my phone. I'm struggling to go to bed on time. But I know it's because I need to get off my phone. And when I do actually listen to myself and just be like, cool, turn your phone off at 9:30 or 10 or whatever it is, I feel significantly better the next day. Not necessarily because I slept more, it was because I listened to myself.
Yeah.
And if I'm like, cool, half an hour more, and then you go, actually, that was an hour more, and then I'm like, cool, now I'm going to bed, and I'm annoyed because I've got less sleep, but more annoyed that I didn't listen to myself.
Yeah.
So my biggest thing right now is trying to do all of these things online, but also not spend all my time online. And that's my battle right now.
Yeah. And it's hard because you like the work.
Yeah,
And then that's always, it's a blessing and a curse when you find the job that you love doing, is that it becomes very hard to stop doing the
yeah,
thing. And then, like you said, it gets in the way of sleep times and bedtimes and other things in life, other priorities in life. I think you've already alluded to what the future holds for you. Big switch up in your career. It sounds like you're about to say no to a lot of things that you previously might have said yes to. But what can we expect of DJ Benny C in the near and far future?
I don't know how it looks exactly in terms of like tangible things, but I've got some really what I think are nice ideas. There's I love music, I love DJ, and I love all the nightlife stuff. You don't need to like be a wreckhead and like enjoy nightclubs. Like you can do both, and I feel like I'm proof of that right now. It doesn't mean you can't drink either, and people will do more than drink, and it also doesn't mean that you can't still live a balanced life. So like I want to be proof that you can perform at a high level in nightlife, but also not be a wreckhead, and you can still look after your health. Bodybuilding's a big part of me, and I don't think that's going to leave right now. How long I'll compete for, but I'm not going to stop weightlifting. I know it makes me feel. That's one thing I want to do is like show you can do both and have a good time. And the other one is my plan and the goal is to, like, as I said, reach the top, but travel to these places. I want to literally try and do things in each of these places. Like kids have such a special place in my heart. I want to kind of like rip up the model of like touring as a DJ a little bit. And it's not like nightclub to nightclub, which it will be in some regard, but it's like city to city. And it's like, what can I do in this city? What can I do in this city? Is it for kids? Is it for fitness? One example of this, which has only sparked me more, Diplo has got a run club. Diplo's turned, but I don't necessarily, money is one thing, right? Diplo's turned it into a business. It's amazing. He'll rock up to a city. He doesn't do it at every city. He couldn't, but he's got this route of Diplo's run club. He's got all these people that sign up and go run with him, like 100, people, maybe more. And then they have a party at the end of it. He'll do like an hour set. But these
So-
people have come together as a community. He's looked after himself because he's like, I'm going to go for a run today. I've got no option. There's 150 people coming. Maybe you could, but there's a lot of motivation there to go and do it. That's kind of cool. I like what he's done there. So kind of want to go to the top in terms of music, but also like rip up the model a little bit and show that you can do good on the road, whether it be for kids or yourself or whatever it is, and do much more than just go nightclub to nightclub to nightclub.
Love it. But we have a bit of a tradition on this podcast, Benny. And the final question, I know you know the question that's coming your way because you've alluded to it already. But if you were to describe your perfect day, what would it look like?
The perfect day would, well, I'm gonna say I'll start with waking up and lifting just because that makes me feel like me. The perfect day is the culmination of working hard and preparing for something, and then today I'm going to experience the other side of it or the doing of it.
So interesting. On your perfect day, there is actually a pretty high pressure event.
Yeah,
Okay, continue.
but I just know what the other side of that feels like.
Yeah.
If the preparation has been put in, I pride myself on preparation for almost everything. Like even there's a lot of debate in the music world and DJing stuff about like DJs preparing sets. I'm like, cool. Like if you came in really prepared for today, you as you do, and I feel like this has been a really good podcast because you haven't gone. What am I going to ask him now? You spend time to do that. I feel like this has been a really good podcast because of that. With a DJ set or a speech, you tell me you're going to do a speech and you're not going to practice it. Is it going to be better than, just off the cuff? Maybe some people, the majority of people would benefit from preparing some stuff and then you practice and you get there. I know if I'm not going to do it, the exact hour set or whatever, but I'll prepare an awful lot with room for creativity. And I know what that feels like. And then I execute it. The crowd hopefully feels like what they want to do it. And I know what that feeling's like. And it's not just about music, but for me, it's executing on something that gives me more joy and happiness than like maybe anything with my mum watching.
I love that. That's a very different answer to what we've had in this. I think most people lean towards the opposite to work and career when they talk about their perfect day. And maybe that's indicative of the life you're living right now and the fact that everything that you're doing is pretty well aligned with what you want to be doing.
Yeah, maybe so. That makes me feel alive, to be honest.
Mm.
Like, I was really grateful to play on a gig in January here in Hong Kong. He was in a circus, and the headline DJ was a guy called Clooney. Don't know how into house music you are or anybody listening. Like Clooney is like really is like one of the top house DJs in the world right now. I got to play on his undercard, and I like not his undercard. It's not like a fight. On
I
his
was gonna say,
Let's play it's not a fight on his lineup. But it was the first time I was ever going to use 4 DJ decks in public, which is an awful lot of technical thing. I practiced and prepped. I only had 45 minutes. So there was no room for like me being like creative when you only get 45 minutes. I knew exactly what was going to happen from the first second to the last second, but it was technically really difficult. Didn't execute it to 100, but I was pretty close. And that feeling on his lineup with the packed circus crowd was like, that feeling is elite. And that's just one of, many examples, but that's a clear one given he's kind of where I want to be in 5 years, if you like.
love it, Benny. I think I'm actually going to leave this conversation feeling pretty motivated.
I appreciate that.
I feel very inspired by hearing your story, and I think there's a lot more that you've shared today than I think. I think you're a very genuine person on Instagram, and obviously I've known you for quite a while now. So it's nothing about authenticity, but it's just nice to hear the background work that goes into what I think the world sees on things like social media, YouTube and Instagram, and obviously in Quality Goods Club when you're up there having an absolute ball. So thank you for sharing all that.
No, no, as I said earlier, I saw your questions and I was like, I'm actually going to get to tell my story today. I feel like I did, like anyone, there's always more to tell, but I feel like I gave a real important, well, not important, it depends if you want to say it. I give the real chunk of my story today. So thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Absolutely, Benny. Until next time, my friend.
Legend, brother. Top man.